I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, and more importantly, happy birthday, Oregon.
Yes, saw that.
Any comments from the public? Just to clarify, because this is new, today we do before and after, but not during. During the regular meetings, we do before and during and not after. Okay, just wanted to clarify for anybody that's in the. Good? Okay. Sarah is on the computer.
Well, there's Sarah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, I would like to present an opportunity before you to apply for a State Library of Oregon grant for teen internships. This would be $5,000 per intern for juniors or seniors in high school.
That seems like a great idea to me.
Sarah, has the library ever had an intern before? Is this like gonna be new for you?
We had an intern last summer. It was a woman who moved to our county who is in library school, and that turned out well. She did some programming for us. We would use these interns for special teen programming and also to help us with our summer reading program. So we have had some experience with them. We also have teen volunteers, and they might be great candidates for this.
Well, sounds very wonderful. I'm glad you found it. I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you.
And are those gonna be from within our community?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Great, probably no hurry on this one.
Yeah, we can just put on consent.
Thank you very much. Happy
Thank you.
Valentine's Day.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Valentine's to you.
All right, Katie?
Morning, everyone. I have, our now sixth amendment of the year for, our contract with Oregon Health Authority for Public Health Services. There's two changes that are happening to funding streams. One is an addition to our public health emergency preparedness program. That typically happens every year because when programs are underspent across the state, they reallocate those funds back to counties. And then we are giving money back to the state, which makes me cringe a little bit, for WIC. And I dug into it. This is an underspending on our part because they're on a federal fiscal year. So we get a portion of funding through October every fiscal year for us, but that's tied to last fiscal year. So because we were underspent last fiscal year in staffing when we had some changes and some vacancies, that carried forward in us being underspent last quarter. Last first quarter for us, but the last quarter of the federal fiscal year. So we'll make some adjustments. Next year, it's just when we get behind in staffing expenditures, those are really hard to make up because really those are our only expenditures out of those grants. Those are the only two changes for Amendment 6.
How bad will it affect you that you're losing the 12,000? Does it affect the program or?
It doesn't because, well, we're understaffed again, for starters, and those funds would have needed to be spent in that first quarter, and we were fine in that first quarter. So we're budgeted as we need for the next 3 fiscal years.
Okay.
The opportunity is still available in the future if they do have the same program.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
That's the only thing I'm on for today.
Steven?
Wait, we're going on, Katie, is that for action today or is it for next week?
It can go next week. Yeah, thank you.
Hey,
Steven?
yes, good morning, everyone. So up next, we have a request for the Justice Center network hardware. This is basically everything that we'll need to turn the network up in that building: access points, switches, firewalls. Comes to 76K and some change. The one challenge with this one is we use Fortinet hardware exclusively, and we are partnered with CDW. And we had multiple conference calls really diving into the plans for the building and how all the data centers are put together, and put together a really specific quotation for exactly what we need on that building turn up. That being the case, we were unable to obtain an exact one-for-one quotes from 2 other vendors. So this comes into the 3 vendor requirement. I've noted the policy implication in the agenda item request, and there is a note 13 on 312.090 that says basically an exemption for specific types or class of materials from a particular vendor or manufacturer is necessary to maintain continuity within an existing system. And then it says computer hardware, uniforms, weapons. And so my understanding is this exemption would apply in this case, since CDW is our exclusive Fortinet partner here. So wanted to note that obviously we were unable to obtain exact 3 different quotes for this exact thing.
Good. Ryan, you got any?
No, that sounds good.
And yeah, hoping for action on this one as the clock's ticking and we want to get all that hardware.
So we do want action today on that? Okay.
If we
So-
could, please.
Just so we have it on the record, I think Steven's right. I think based on what he's presented, that exception in the county's procurement code would apply. I also think based on what he's presented, the county could use the intermediate system, because that doesn't require that the county necessarily receive 3 competitive price quotes. It requires that the county try in good faith to get 3 competitive price quotes. What he's presented today is that the county try to find alternative vendors who would be able to permit bids for this type of hardware. What we found is that this company CDWG and companies like that have sort of a, I don't want to say monopoly, but manufacturers or publishers of software and computer equipment will use companies like CDWG as more or less their only vendors. So we wouldn't be able to say necessarily go to a competitor of CDWG, because Fortinet may do business with anyone else. One of the things we want to do is update our county code to address issues like this, because we're seeing it more and more for software and computer hardware services. So with that, so we have it on the record, I think both the county's code provision on intermediate procurement has been complied with, and this exception 09013 would also apply.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to 1076,006.53 for the network hardware for the Justice Center.
And I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, Steven, got another one here.
Yes, I do. So this is our server clusters. So think the data center and all the hardware in there that is running, things like Active Directory, which is the Windows systems, and the email and GIS components. So basically all of the hardware running in our data center is supported by Cohesity. This is annual support renewal. Previously, the county was doing 3-year renewals. I've changed the stance on that to single-year renewals to not lock us in for three years, as we have more flexibility going forward. But yes, this is a single annual renewal, 25/5/10/98 for the Cohesity platform.
Do you also need this one today? No.
This one can wait for the next session.
Okay. So let's do this and send it in.
Mhm.
Just so we have it on the record as well regarding the Fortinet purchase. I might also suggest a motion to authorize Stephen to sign the purchase order on behalf of the county. It looks to me like it might be electronic, so that might just make things a little easier.
So
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Eric?
What you have in front of you is a modest change to the county's employee handbook, but rather important. The county will execute a number of intergovernmental agreements, either with the state or with the government, which requires the county have a drug-free workplace policy, and we do. Looking through some recent documents that the county's been asked to consider, we double checked, and there is one discrepancy between our policy, which bears addressing. Under those contracts and the federal statutes that they cite, we need to have a requirement in our policy that if someone is convicted of a drug-related offense, they need to tell the county as an employer within 5 calendar days. Our current policy says they have to inform us within 5 business days. This fortunately is not something that comes up very often at all, but just out of abundance of caution, what you have on your agenda packet is an order that would make that one change to the county's employee handbook. It also makes a change to specify that this is a conviction includes a plea of no contest. The point of that is, of course, if someone says, I am not contesting this charge against me, they're going to be convicted. And we don't want them to say, well, I didn't have to follow this policy because I only plead no contest instead of pleading guilty. So we've added that provision into this change to the employee handbook, but otherwise it's quite honest. The idea is that this would be presented at the next week's county court.
sounds good.
Eric? Andy?
Yeah, I wanted to just have a brief discussion with all of you regarding the franchise agreement that we have with Republic Services. You know, over the last several months, Jackie has implemented some improvements to the website to allow for, you know, tracking of complaints, resolution of those complaints and so forth. There was a memo that she sent out, distributed to all of you, kind of detailing some of the findings over the last several months. Certainly there's some complaints regarding, you know, some of the decisions and service levels that are being provided. We're familiar, you know, certainly over in Deschutes County, they've sent out a notice to terminate the agreement with Republic. That's a 6-year notification requirement. That took a fair amount of time, public engagement and so forth for them to get to that decision. If you want us to be spending some time to be looking into that, working on that, you know, we can adjust schedules and so forth. And right now I'm suggesting that it'd be nice to just not be engaged with that. We've got enough other things that are on our plate. We can maybe make some progress through some discussions as we update the solid waste management plan and gain some insight through that process with the committee. And then as we go through goal setting, we can talk about, you know, the level of interest you all have in terms of, you know, time that we want to put into the work plan for that. But, you know, presently with legal staff, I think is, as you know, pretty slammed, as are we with IT and various other systems. And Jackie's in the middle of this you know, master planning document that, you know, I would suggest that we kind of let this thing ride, watch a little bit about what goes on up in over in Deschutes, engage more with Republic and evaluate here in the next several months.
Yeah, no, that's, I just think we need to make sure, because I'm hearing consistent between public and. So.
Yeah, I understand, and yeah, that's, I mean, if you as you look at the information, if there's a reporting scheme that you think would be useful to you, and we'll be playing with that, iterate on it, and you'll get something that becomes a template that gets updated, monthly. Something that's available on the website most of the year.
So so I know Paulina, I kind of feel responsible a little bit for that because they didn't go because of weather. And then the next weekend, Jackie called me and said they weren't gonna be there, so I told everyone. And then, of course, they were there and they were upset no one showed up. Well, there's gotta be some better communication.
Right.
And is she working on that? And like the Grizzly Road thing, they were supposed to put a fence and put whatever, that hasn't gotten done. Is anything being done? It seems like Republic, you tell them, but there's no feedback or anything. And it's just like the Paulina thing. All they have to do is tell me, which they did, and then of course they showed up, but I mean, we need it because otherwise there is no place for trash.
Yeah, that's a subject that came up in the kickoff meeting with with the solid waste management plan update. And so it's on the radar as far as the communication channels. Jackie's certainly in touch with them, and we're, on any of these complaints, any communication that we're doing, we're documenting, that follow-up and build, a good track record so that when you do get into these conversations about whatever changes you might want to make, including terminating the contract, you've got a basis for that.
When is the contract up?
It has a 6-year notice. It's a rolling.
So it just keeps going until you tell them and then 6 years later they're out.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty nice contract.
So I think, we need to really look at that because I think that could, if nothing else, be a negotiating tool with them. We may not even have to do much once we start that process. But then we can look at that and other, other options around the community that could fill that void. And so I don't know, I really enjoy the people that work higher up in there, but it just doesn't seem to be getting through. And I think the people that work there work hard. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's some kind of disconnect between the people that I talk to and the people that are on the ground doing the work. And so I've consistently seen issues, and I'd like to see at a minimum, if they miss one pickup a month for a customer, that customer doesn't have to pay for that month or something along those lines. To hold them accountable for,
Again, we can look at those types of things.
Yeah.
But as far as doing the best we can in terms of that communication, and then tracking what's happening and reporting that back to you for at least right now, trying to, again, minimize how much time we, spend trying to negotiate this or negotiate that. We have an agreement that sets forth the terms, and we try to the best of our ability, make sure that they know what those terms are and that they're performing those. And your recourse is somewhat limited from, my recollection of things.
well, but if we start the process, then I think our recourse becomes much clearer. And then we
I
can
understand,
start-
that's what I think I just said, is we were building a case to have
Yeah.
that ability. And if we want to put this above all the other things that we have going on, we can do that. I'm suggesting to you that we don't. We've got many other issues right now that are fully consuming staff's time. And, this would be something that will suck up a fair amount of time, and I think giving it several months here would be a good step. That's my suggestion to you.
Yeah.
And I've been critical of how they've been operating, with some of the meetings that we've had, but I want to make sure that we have a good record. We all have people call us, but we write that down, doing it, probably not. So I think we need to establish that record. And I've also heard people that are happier with them now than they were also, so I heard on those times. Before we try to make a big change on things, I think we want to have a record of it to substantiate what we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah, a big part of this would be, having further dialogue, quite a bit of dialogue with Deschutes County in terms of the process they've ultimately, worked through to get to where they are. And I know,
And I think that's also going to include the city of Prineville, because we are.
right, yeah. And this solid waste advisory committee, again, we're leveraging that committee that exists with the city. So that'll be the opportunity for Jackie to get in and gain some insights there. Jeff Merwin, former landfill manager who's now working for Deschutes. He's got a lot of insights on these matters and his ability to communicate to that group over the next several months. Will provide us some insights that without us having to go out and spend a bunch of time on it.
I agree with Brian, and I think we just table it for a little bit and get our ducks in a row and. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like I say, and quite frankly, if Republic would just have more communication, I think. I know in Paulina, that would solve a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly what we're hoping for is, improve the communication. The fact that, set up a reporting, scheme back to you, so you're aware of what's going on. Communicate that certainly back to Republic.
And let's put it out on the webpage and let's put an article on the paper and let's advise people that we have this set up. So if you're not happy, then there's a number to call. And
Right.
Contact and let's get their participation and also.
I think that's a really good idea. I
Good
agree
with all that?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah.
As long as we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
That's what we've been working on, okay. For 7,
Yep.
okay, so there's information including in your packet. Including a preliminary proposed scope of work for a HRIS, which is a Human Resource Information System project manager. As you know, we do not have the staff capacity right now to manage or expertise, frankly, to manage that particular project. I did get a draft HR roadmap. They're finding that, they're recommending, the addition of a person specific to overseeing that project. We've been, over the last few weeks, out seeking out potential folks for that. We talked with the VIE, the consultants for the HR roadmap. If they've got anybody that they might be able to recommend to us, they do not. We've talked with Greg Prothman, Prothman and Associates. He's a recruiter that has done work for the county before and quite a bit of recruiting in this particular area. They do not have anybody that's available to run, be available in this. They're out looking and will, advise me if that were to happen. I've talked with Steve down at Mid-Oregon Employment Agency, where folks both for project manager as well as generalist type of HR staffing. At this point, they don't have anybody. We do have an individual that is, my judgment, an ideal fit for this particular situation. She has about 0.4 of an FTE, 16 hours of her week available to contribute to the project oversight. She has a very reasonable billing rate. She's quoted 125. We are working on whether we can get to just that flat monthly number that might be a little bit less. The challenge is there's some issues that I'll have Eric brief you on as it relates to ethics. And the issue is that this woman happens to be the spouse of one of our department heads, Stephen Chalice, that you just spoke to. Resumes in the packet. I've interviewed her, talked to her about her various work and what she could provide to us. So it would be project management as well as available there for Amy and myself to get advice on how to handle various HR type issues. She's got 20+ years of experience as an HR director in a number of places, as well as doing HRIS implementations. Eric, if you wanted to touch on that ethics issues.
Yeah, so I think there are 4 ethics issues that the county is confronting. And, I'll go through them one by one. First is under the county's employee handbook, it talks about the employment of relatives. This is a little bit different because this would be, as I understand it, a contract, an independent contractor, not employment. Nevertheless, the county might say that this may not be a technical fit, but it would be wise to treat it as falling under employment or compliant with this contract. For this situation. What that employee handbook provision says is that an employee may not be in the chain of command answering to a relative. So in this case, I think the county can adopt a finding that in this case, if this provision even applies, the county is going to say, we are waiving this requirement because Stephen, of course, is going to work and his department is going to work very closely with the implementation of this HRIS system.
Yeah, one clarification on that. She'll be reporting to me. Yeah, not to Steve.
So I think that can be addressed. The second issue has to do with the state ethics statutes on nepotism, and it has more or less the same provisions. That too can be addressed by the county saying we have received a disclosure of suggest doing that kind of finding in a written form, so that then it's memorialized and it's presented up to the clerk's office so that it's preserved. The third issue has to do with the conflict of interest state statutes. So when a county employee is presented with a circumstance in which there might be a benefit to a relative that is not shared by the general public, the normal rule is that that person has to present to his or her supervisor this situation and ask the supervisor to resolve it. One way to resolve it is to say, okay, you're not working on this, we will have someone else work on it. So just as an example, my brother came to the county and said, I want to perform this work and I want her to work contract. I would have a conflict of interest there. So I would come to the county administration and say, I have a conflict of interest, how to resolve this. One answer would be, okay, Eric, don't work on it, John works on it, something like that. In this case, that may not be terribly feasible, because again, IT is going to be working with implementation. So the county could say, thank you for providing us with this information about conflict of interest. We are going to resolve this by saying, we are going to direct you, Stephen, to continue working on this project. That will then give Stephen the protection of the ethics statutes to continue working. And again, I would suggest that that be memorialized in writing and then preserved at the clerk's office. The fourth topic is the use of public position for private pecuniary gain. So the use of your position with a county in such a manner that you have some sort of private benefit that is not available to general members of the public is prohibited, even if the conflict of interest statutes are complied with. In this case, and based on what Andy presented, I think that the county would be able to say that that has not happened because the county has tried to find alternative vendors for this service. You heard that you reached out to Brockman didn't have anyone to recommend. Reached out to BIE, they didn't have anyone to recommend. Reached out to Mid-Oregon Personnel, they didn't have anyone to recommend. So if there is a competitive process open to the public, whereby people can submit bids on a competitive basis, and then ultimately the county selects a vendor, I think the county can comply with this statute. And we would want to memorialize this process in writing. So all that's just sort of an overview, and a lot of it's going to depend on the details of what we put into writing. But I think this is manageable.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like we can control and make sure it's proper.
Can we meet this gal first? Or is
Steven.
she in Portland? Is your wife around, Stephen?
Sorry, had to unmute. Yeah, she can, I guess I'll let her carpool with me if there's no rules against that one.
No, she has to drive behind you, that's the way. Anyway, no, I think that it would be nice to meet her before we go any farther, at least with the commissioners.
Yeah, timing wise, I would have this on the agenda for next week and we can get her down before that. Yeah, sure. We're at a point that's urgent and.
Yeah. And then at that time, would you have, Eric, I'm assuming you draw up whatever paperwork that we're gonna need?
Let me put my head together with you. Yeah.
Okay,
We'll get things put together. I mean, she's looked at the, the draft scope of work. Eric hasn't had a chance to look at that. And the contractual, she's seen the, county's standard professional services agreement. We can execute, those things. I think all the things that Eric mentioned, we can most likely address within the contract itself. And get them. The intent here would be to have everything put onto the agenda, and whether you want this to be something that's discussed in public at the 21st, or whether you would want it to go ahead and go through consent with this being sufficient discussion. Let you three and Eric decide that.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if there was a discussion. But I don't see any disadvantage to the county and more public involvement in this circumstance.
Totally agree.
and I agree with Eric that I think it should be a discussion matter.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, yeah,
Okay.
okay, thank you for moving forward on trying to get this.
Yeah, I mean, the reality too is next week's a short week.
Because the president says,
Presidents, and you're out of,
I won't fly back in until like 6 o'clock. Tuesday night.
right. So we can
So
set up
I could just
a
meet with her
video
maybe,
conference.
Or, yeah, I can do that, totally easy, because, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, in
perfect.
fact,
I
if
would
we would
just
like
like
to
to-
do a video conference, today, tomorrow, we can get
Yeah.
that arranged.
Probably not today for me, because I'll be on a
Sure.
plane, but tomorrow would be totally fine with me, or Friday,
Yeah.
whatever, just,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll work
Totally
something out for.
I
each
just
year.
think it would be nice to meet her and ask questions, and I think that would be good for all of us, and then we can go on with this, but I thank you for moving along with this, I know it's very much needed.
Okay. Let's. You.
Sarah.
I'll have this meeting of these. And we had some computer updates that, resulted in a. We didn't get all the copies printed of this that I wanted to, so apologize that there may not be others for the audience, but. Yep. So, just a couple documents handing out to you this morning. One is a schedule of numbers. I'll go through those with you. And then the second is a report, just a report that talks about our space needs, work that was done last spring, summer. And I'll touch on that as well. But Seth had requested an update related to the Justice Center and courthouse, and I'll keep this at a fairly high level. And glad to address questions that you may have. The first schedule number here provides a Justice Center forecast as of February 2024. The amounts here are in thousands. And what I've put together is the major revenue or resources categories, and then all the expenditures that are related to the Justice Center. By fiscal year, for the first 3 years, 21 through 23, then the 6 months ended December 31, 23, and then the forecast of activity for for the 6 months ended June 30th, 24. And then on the far right column is the totals from the beginning of the project. And what you'll see there is, 61,400,000 worth of resources, including 42.5 million in debt proceeds and 16.5 million in grant dollars from the state. The expenditures are 52.6 million, leaving an ending balance available, for the courthouse from that original bond sale of $8.8 million. Okay. The 52.6 million is the original total combined budget of the construction budget, and then the soft cost and other costs of about 10.1 million. The total ends up at 52.1 million. There's 529,000 in fiscal 24 that are internal service fund transfers that are effectively being funded by the interest earnings that we've realized here, which is helping to keep your staffing during this particular project. The 8.8 million again is the forecast number to be available for the courthouse renovation project. The county, as you recall, completed task 1 of a facilities master plan. It's a high level programming and space allocation in May of 23. That's the report that is here that was completed by Hinneberry. That particular report, again, identified the space needs, where we are presently in a 10-year forecast. That information is on page, I want to say 4. And ultimately, they came up with 2 primary options. And those are highlighted on page 1, or actually page 2, which included an option to construct a new 2 or 3-story building to the east and physically connect each floor of the courthouse to that new building. They just not come out, right?
They have a lot of page 2s.
Is that how that printed out?
Yes.
Yeah, my apologies. Printed.
It looks like you're talking about that plan.
That plan, let's go to that plan. Well, Eric can show you.
Okay. Which is this one, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, I'm on the right one, sorry. Okay. Which now it is the 3 level, okay, got it.
Yeah, and it's shown as 2 or 3, depending on, various factors. The, Nick and Will, Christine and I have, with Brian, spent a little bit more time looking at fine tuning this a little bit. And the latest version of this shows 2 floors, 8,000 square foot each. 1 floor occupied by community development, 1 floor occupied by health. That's current conversations internally, and we're just, working through to see what ultimately might be the best solution, knowing that, when we last met, and talked about this study back, I think in June of 23, the consensus was this particular building east of the courthouse, connecting the 2, and in that part of the building that's a connection, you would have elevators and restrooms that would serve both buildings. And that would facilitate the ability in the courthouse to minimize the renovation work around ADA.
Disruption in the historical building.
Yeah, just, it minimizes the negative impacts of tearing things apart to make things work in today's building code environment. And also, maintains as many square feet as possible. And I think it's
And
about,
that would be your ADA restrooms and all that
Yeah.
would be in there. Okay.
right, yeah, that'd be in that little connection spot. It would be where everybody would enter into that. They could go to the east to go into the, community development, health. To the other side of the building, you would have the clerk, the assessor, finance, HR, legal, admin, probably IT. And, we're still trying to figure out where the facilities group would go. But that would take care of pretty much everybody that's in the downtown core, would all be consolidated onto one campus. The, so that's, the background there on the building. Now, the cost of the courthouse by itself is, last thing with seismic work and everything else, with all costs included, was roughly a budget of $25 million. So, we're at eight million. So, we need to be able to secure another 17 million. Back when I originally ran the forecasts for the data centers and so forth, that was very feasible. At the bottom here, I've given you an update of the forecast through 2028. 2028 is when the properties begin to come on to the tax rolls, and this is Facebook's first particular building that is the first to come on. Based on where they are presently, forecasting, real property go increase by 3%, which I believe is reasonable, given watching the historical trend. The personal property, I'm holding that flat right now. That number has declined significantly, and really not sure when they may make an investment, when they would choose not to make an investment. There's some other statutory things that, in this enterprise zone that come into play that go beyond what I've, plugged in here, and we're trying to dive deeper into that. We really need to, talk more with Facebook, find out what their plans are. But there's additional exemptions that exist for Facebook, Apple, others that are buying, $500 million worth of servers at a time, and they can get at a minimum 3 years worth of exemption. And by the time it does come onto the tax roll, it's significantly diminished. The values that you're seeing here are diminished from the values that existed previously, and I would expect this to go down, and it's just, the timing, will they buy this in year 25 or 26? They're facing, in the conversations we've had with folks a little familiar and have, contact within Facebook, they've been, facing significant issues with supply chain as well. And then you have some pretty significant changes in technology, and you're hearing terms maybe of quantum computing and that type of stuff that Stephen could certainly, speak to. But those things all, I think, weigh into, as well as tax implications and their decisions related to the timing, which then impacts our forecast. But bottom line, based on the projected property, the values, the current tax rate, projected property taxes, and that schedule's around 3.7 million. The communication to the voters a few years ago was that we wanted their voter approval so that we had a backup plan should all this stuff not happen the way, and also to get the best interest rate, best terms as we could. So that's about a $2.1 million, $2.2 million outlay. So you end up with about $1.6 million estimated to be available. Current debt rates are around 4.5% on a 20-year obligation. That amounts to about $77,000 a year, and providing a, estimating the debt capacity with 1.25 debt coverage ratio, which means you're collecting 125% of the revenue needed to pay the taxes or pay the debt. We end up with about 16 million available in debt capacity. So the 16 million and the 8 gets you to the 25 million, which is what we see as the cost for the courthouse alone without any additional building. So consistent with the conversation and in the communication out to the public, in approving the bonds, you're still in a position to fulfill that, commitment. The results of this particular work, I think, provide an opportunity, which is how to keep the courthouse better than, ripping it up, and also provide for some additional needs such as community development, health, that we know that are out there as well. And provide really, I think, for a really nice looking addition, as well as a better utilization of the land as it presently exists. This building would go where the current police station is effectively, and that would go away. And unfortunately, one of the printouts I was trying to get you is some work that Nick did that gave an overhead view of the footprint and the grass going all the way across. That driveway that comes off of Third Street now is gone. And it's just a grass front with sidewalks all the way across. End up with a patio on the east side of the annex building, let's call it, and opens up out onto the park that is there. So it makes for, I think, a nice improvement to the downtown. But that annex building is roughly, right now, around 11.2 million. That's at $700 a square foot. The cost of the connection, I don't have that particular number right now. Some of that, I believe, is gonna be recaptured by not doing the improvements inside the courthouse. In other words, not doing the restrooms and all that work, and just put them in there. So I don't know that it's a significant add. But it, may be something that, needs to be, factored in another million or so. The ability to get the $11.2 million in fiscal 29, and there's just more work, need to do, but fiscal 29, fiscal 30, we see additional properties from the data centers coming onto the tax rolls. And I think there's a way, I'm fairly confident right now, just scanning at this without spending the time to run the numbers completely, that there's gonna be the capacity to do a debt issue similar to what we did for the courthouse, which is we did a deferred capitalized borrowing. So the interest from the time of the debt being issued to when we start paying the debt just gets added to the total amount. And that was done for 5 years. Fiscal 30, if we issued in 25, would effectively be 4 fiscal years. Fiscal 31 would be 5 fiscal years. So I think, we would see as you can see, to get $11 million, we need another, roughly $1 million worth of additional revenue out of that. That all makes sense, but I'll put together more numbers over the next few weeks, to give you, I won't commit to a few weeks. I'm gonna say, as we go into the goal setting, we'll have, better numbers on this. Some other things that we've, looked at here is property acquisition. We had Michael Warren go out and get us some estimated values on the police station, on the annex, the library property, which was a surprise that Nick learned and communicated, is the library is actually sitting on city property. And apparently the folks in your position and the folks, your peers on the other side of the street, couldn't come to agreement on what that land was worth. And, talking with Steve, it'd be nice to get that just, made part of some sort of deal so we can get that under county ownership.
Police department.
Get the police department under county ownership and get the annex across the street as a surplus property and go to the city. There's one other property lot between the annex building and the city hall building that is also owned by the county. So trying just to, clean up some of the property and get that, taken care of. And in that scenario, there's a surplus of value on the county side in that exchange process. So it's not, and so that's gonna be an additional cost to deal with. If we can, the cities agree, find a way to do like kind exchanges so that neither one of us is necessarily coming out of pocket with cash. Okay, and that looks fairly doable, from what I've looked at. Yeah, at least certainly on the county side. Okay. Um. One other thing, we haven't been in a hurry on this for, several reasons. One is trying to get better information as relates to, the the needs and the costs and so forth. The pending lawsuit with the state, and the uncertainty, surrounding that is there as well. The interest rates right now are not favorable. If they were favorable, I'd be suggesting maybe we get busy and try to get the debt issued, but right now there's not a hurry, to do that. The inflation ticking up a little bit right now, actually sending the bond market back up a little bit. So hopefully that's will stabilize and things will be in a better situation, when we're ready to move forward. But we do have the dollars, certainly. We can put the forecasting all together to have you have comfort to move forward with a decision on what the scope of your project is. And to get that design moving so that we can get into construction mode.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, is to start that process. Like, what it looks like and those things, so, yeah, no, I understand that there's lots of moving parts and different things, so.
Yeah, and if this is, something, where we're at right now, with Nick's replacement is we're gonna move forward with a facilities position rather than a, call it capital projects manager slash facilities. And recruit a capital projects type person, once we're understanding what it is we're looking for as a consultant rather than a staff person. And that way the facilities piece can focus on the ongoing maintenance, repair, et cetera, and the other person focused on the actual construction. And one of the things I know Nick was challenged with was how much time can I devote to the capital projects, particularly this new project versus taking care of the oversight management and, of the existing improvements, much less dealing with, a $50 million project right down here that's gonna be online and require quite a bit of oversight and expertise to stay on top of that. All makes sense?
Yeah, I have a dumb question. So what is this? It doesn't extend. Why is it at a half thing here on the third story? Is the third story questionable?
I think it was presented, Susie, as an option, an alternative, and we did have some discussion about, do we build three, when we first go about this and have that
Sure.
room to move into, because you won't be able to likely do it ever again. Whatever you build is likely gonna be what you build. And just looking at the space requirements, was, I think, a little bit of playing around with that. One other element, that kind of comes into play here, you've heard Will's reports in terms of the activities and so forth, and, those aren't numbers that you would go out, be all excited about to build a new building based on development activity. But, we do know that, both Apple, Facebook are each, I think, looking at, expansions. It's just a matter of timing and, and electricity capacity, I think, is one of the, the big issues, and getting some certainty or increased certainty related to that, I think, is the most biggest contingency that exists out there. Okay,
We will have some money that's gonna like that. When we do move into the Justice Center, then we can we can look at this, doing some remodeling, some things that need to happen. If something doesn't happen. Kick it into the next portion of the dollars.
yeah, I think, it'd be great if we could, get this lawsuit resolved and have a better knowledge of where we're going, and with that, I think bring it back. What building do you guys want, right? And then if we can get the design going in fiscal year 25, with a plan in fiscal 26, and we can be, got a year, 2 years, 18 plus months to, see interest rates improve to, at that point, maybe be in a better position to issue debt. If not, worst case is you have all the design and plans and ready to go, pull the trigger when you're ready to move forward.
Andy, I don't know if this is a question for you, but one thing to be mindful of is a Mosaic is looking to expand. And so timing wise, we'll want to work closely with them because we will need space when Mosaic expands their services.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, your lease runs through, December 27, something along those
I
lines.
think so, yeah.
Yeah. And, some discussion that we also had, back in June, and it's still an ongoing discussion, is whether health, is this the right location for health, or is, another building, near their existing campus, the better location. So that's still an ongoing discussion.
What are your feelings? Do you think that being here would be better, or would you rather be out somewhere else?
Our current location is, really ideal. Co-location with Mosaic allows us to share, we literally walk patients across hallways. We have providers meet patients in each other's spaces. With the pharmacy right there, it is ideal. It's a model that's used in both Deschutes and Jefferson counties as well, for us to be able to be co-located, or at least near each other. I think there's pros and cons to both spaces.
Yeah, I think it's just a process we need to go through, but I've had very extensive conversations. And I think that being close to this, I mean, we just have to figure it out, but I see a lot of the advantages being close to Mosaic and up in that area. Outside of the core of the city, and, giving you the ability to share those clients with each other and.
Yeah, and let me clarify one thing too, that, in the whole funding package, this additional debt was really aimed at more the community development and, health. We had originally somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million in grant proceeds that we had in the programming, and we didn't get that funding from the state. Now the whole region got the goose egg, right?
Yeah.
So this is reworking, coming up with our own plan with local dollars versus needing reliance on outside grants, although.
And I think there's
we'll-
still opportunities to find stuff at the state level. And
Yeah.
different things around,
Yeah,
so.
so we'll be looking at those opportunities and. If that's $1 million, $2 million, wherever we can nickel and dime to help. Reduce the local share, would be something we'll do.
Great. Anything for your administrator's report?
One thing that I want to mention is we're gonna end up doing another round of employee-only employee-only meetings throughout the county. Be 4 or 5 of them with single departments such as road and community development, sheriff's office, and then a number of combined meetings. Those will take place beginning next Wednesday. First one be at road department. How early can we show up, Brad?
You want to be there, so, we're there at 6:30, but like 7 o'clock is fine.
So 6:37, we'll be there, and do the court meeting, and then after the court meeting, hopefully we can have a brief court meeting. Trying to arrange the agenda so that it's fairly short, is we would have, another meeting Wednesday morning at 10:30, and then a couple meetings in the afternoon, and then 4 meetings on Thursday, and then 2 meetings the following Monday. And be going over a number of issues. There's policy issues. The accrued leave policy that you approved, that we rolled out. There's some questions that have come up on that, that we want to make sure we're addressing more face-to-face than through email. There is the non-standard work schedule, the discussion that we've been having, and you're aware of, and we've met with each department and by position have laid that out, and we want to explain that to the employees as well. Give them an update on where we are with this HRIS. And the ERP, those two software things that are going to start showing up. We are targeted right now to go live with extension on April 1st for the ERP, and with the rest of the organization on May 1. And not everybody's going to be impacted on May 1. They won't know that they're impacted, but they will be in some ways. But since they don't have the computer systems presently on their desktop, those that aren't part of that rollout on May 1 in terms of stuff on their desks, they will continue to do things the way they're doing them. We're just going to talk through some of that with employees so they understand how things will roll out, and we'll fine tune that as we're going. But the ERP, a little bit different than the HRIS. The ERP is kind of department by department. You can roll it out literally by user, putting things on a desktop, where HRIS is almost the big bang thing with various elements of the software being made available to employees. But for an organization that has a knack for not liking change, there's gonna be a fair amount of it. And we'll go ahead and set up a more regular process with them to communicate and make sure they're feeling like they're in the loop. And a chain that we can find a way that they can get, questions to the appropriate people so that their concerns are addressed. Then we'll also have Vance Jacobson be there to he'll do this remotely, go through the comp study, where all the positions are stacking up, what is the plan on how that rolls out, so they get a chance to give feedback before it comes back to you, or then what we've experienced, and I think in some of this is you end up adopting it, then it gets rolled out, and then you have all this anxiety complaints. We'd rather kind of get that dealt with before it ends up coming to you. And we'll know what those complaints are so that you can be aware of them before they come up. Okay.
Sounds good. Anything, commissioners?
Have a request from multiple irrigation district, that they are doing a floating solar project. And they would just like a letter from the county in support of it. They're going after some grant money. It's about a 3-acre project, and it's going to be, floating solar panels on the re-regulation reservoirs, or which, and those are what is below which reservoir ponds that you're seeing. And their power will be managed by the Oregon Community Solar Program, and the power will be used for residential homes and commercial operations.
Where are the ponds?
They're just right down below the spillway.
Behind Schwab's house.
Yeah.
What, does it generate money for the district and lower
It does,
lower my fees?
Well, it'll help with, costs for maintenance costs, and it'll help support future irrigation modernization projects.
Yeah.
And it helps reduce evaporation and helps control altitude. Weeds,
Exciting.
and it's movable if you have to move it out of the way.
Oh, really? Just in case you had a big spillway action.
Well, in case you had to support the reservoirs.
Oh, so it's not in the water.
Yeah, it floats on the water,
Oh,
but it
okay.
floats on a very minimal amount of water that's below the reservoir. This isn't in the reservoir. It's
Yeah. Okay.
And so they sent a letter, and if we can make a motion to approve that and sign it, because they. Sarah has all that.
Sounds good to me. Entertain a motion?
So moved.
So
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, I met with the guy from, Jeff Merkley's office yesterday, had a good conversation with him about some of the water issues we're having around here, as well as the wolf issues. We had a good conversation about it. Our Congressman Cliff Benz is coming next Thursday at 10 a.m. to Kerry Foster to talk about wolves and have a town hall with the community, and so, if you know anybody, make sure to spread the word on that. We'd like to get as many people there as possible. So,
Is there gonna be anything in the press at all about that, or?
yeah, I'm waiting for them to give me some type of a flyer or something to get out.
And is it specifically wolves, or is he?
Specifically,
Okay, so it will be just wolves.
I mean, I'm sure that there'll be.
And
other
you said
people
town
that
hall.
ask I mean, I think it's a wolf town hall, I guess would be a better way to describe it. And
Okay.
he's working on getting congressional hearings about the process, and we all three heard at the last meeting that the timing is not great. The federal government has made a decision that was actually pretty favorable to the wolves. But, yet again, environmental groups are coming in and shutting that down, and, they're talking about a couple of years to figure it out, and that's too long. And I mean, I hope that that's what I hear from people in the community. That's what I've been talking to the congressman. I'm sure all three of us have been talking with the congressman about that, saying, that's too long for the people that live in these areas, and they're losing animals to this apex predator.
Something's going on with our wolf committee, because if you notice, there was a lack of certain individuals there. And so there's an undercurrent there, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but something's going on in that accounting. I'm just saying, just by noting the people that weren't present. I think that's just a kind of a note, just kind of put your ear to the ground on that.
So is that it? for you?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Anything?
No? No, I'm good.
I'll just give a quick update on the Justice Center. So things are moving along. Tomorrow we actually get to set a generator, and that generator was used on the south. And precipitated on a lot of how the Justice Center was going to be built and things that happened, and so it's good news. It's here, all electric switching gear. It's moving along well. The third floor, the judicial floor is, they have bare walls around the courtroom, are in, the jury room. And it's all sheet rock and tile. Next week, we'll start with some bathroom tile. It's that nature, some cabinetry work is in. They're pulling all of the low voltage wire now for the cables and things that go for the AV. Second floor, she is pretty much sheet rock and painted also. Yeah. Working on some improvements on it also. The first floor, the process of sheet rocking it. It's about half done. So it's moving through it. They're gonna start some civil things next week outside, everything on the north side. Be prepping for sidewalks, getting the power in for the street lights and outside civil things, sprinkler systems, getting them to do some of the landscaping and things of that nature. So moving along.
Good. Good job.
So the other thing I wanted to just talk briefly on, that we're in the process of securing that lot that's on April 2nd for parking. That I'm speaking
Blue
with
house, blue house.
Blue House. I'm in the process of speaking with the architect, I'm spoken with the city. We don't have to have any special permits with one in connection with the Justice Center.
Oh, good.
So, but we will need some site plan and some civil work done, some surveying, so we can, we'll have to do sidewalks, landscaping, And also,
How does that work when you don't connect on to, if I remember correctly, there's not sidewalks on the rest of the block?
well, I believe there are some on Second Street,
Yeah, but not that way.
not right.
You just,
But the majority
two,
have
and then
that
the next
block.
person has to add.
Yeah, we won't have to do it on anybody but ours. But we will do it on ours. We'll have to put a meter on. We ran electrical conduit from the Justice Center to that lot to run the street lines. And it has water, so we have some landscaping. up here. What's on that lot. We're also looking on the original, we'll get a secondary cost on this, but on original, we were looking at also with less parking, that we would come back in on play pool, stripe it, and also do some work on play pool. And so we're looking at that now, since we don't have that block. To redoing play pool, making it pretty much like, Beaver and making it one way and one way coming in from the south and north. So the transport and sharing from to get it to the south
And it would make sense because it would be the opposite of Beaver.
be the same as Beaver.
Oh, so they would both become this.
So that's, but the city is, I guess, fine with that. So more to come in the next week.
Great. Thank you. Who do I talk to for a tour? I've been in a while.
Yeah, well, I'm doing the tour tomorrow for the road department. I'm doing one Friday for legal and so yeah, if you want to go tour, talk to her. I'm doing them because then it doesn't take their time away.
Sure.
So I am willing to take whatever they can do.
Does that fit under the tour that I could join?
So if you're doing a site visit and you're not going to be discussing matters of public concern, I
Well,
think
I would never.
then yeah, I think that would qualify as not being a meeting under.
Cool. Do you mind if I jump in on that?
Absolutely.
Great. Anything else? Hey, we're moving to executive session.
Can we take like a 5 minutes?
Yes, I need. one.
Thank you, perfect. I've had way too much.
For that,
No.
Wednesday, did God reach out to you?
Say aye.
I should be.